Hello everyone, this is Arthur. In this video, I'll go over how you can use the work you're doing in Info 200 as evidence of your competence in the ePortfolio. As you may know, the ePortfolio is the culminating experience of your MLIS degree program at San José State. In theory, you could write a thesis instead of creating an ePortfolio, but in practice, the thesis is not really a viable option, and so everyone ends up doing the ePortfolio, which requires you to demonstrate mastery in 14 different skill areas deemed essential for entry-level professional performance. These skill areas are also known as the program learning outcomes or the core competencies. All the courses you take, including Info 200, support various competencies from this list of 14. It's important, therefore, that you understand that the work you're doing in Info 200 and in your other classes is work that you'll revisit during the portfolio process when it comes time to identify artifacts that prove your competencies. So in this video, we will take a look at the competency areas that Info 200 supports and map the course assignments onto those areas. First, let's do a whistle-stop tour of the 14 core competencies of the MLIS degree program. The labels you see on screen are my titles for them, which are abbreviations of the full competency requirements. For example, I've put DEI for Comp C, but the actual language in the ePortfolio handbook says, articulate the importance of designing programs and services supportive of diversity, inclusion, and equity for clientele and employees. So I think my shorthand of DEI is a pretty good encapsulation, but you always want to make sure that you adhere to the exact language of the competency as written in the online handbook. Here, you can see that the 14 areas cover the following topics: ethics, organizational settings, DEI, planning, management, marketing, and advocacy, retrieval systems, selection, evaluation, organization, and preservation, cataloging and metadata, emerging technology, information-seeking behavior, designing learning experiences, research, leadership and communication, assessment and evaluation, and global perspectives. For each of these 14 areas, you'll write a short introduction essay and then provide 3 or 4 pieces of evidence that prove your competence in that area. And for every piece of evidence, you'll write a description of what the artifact is and then a justification explaining exactly how it demonstrates your proficiency. Info 200 supports 8 of the 14 core comps. Take a look at the competency titles on screen here and think about how they resonate with the work you're doing in Info 200. Certainly, topics like emerging technology, information-seeking behavior, and global perspectives should sound familiar. And indeed, all of the assignments in Info 200 have the potential to serve as ePortfolio evidence, but this will of course depend on the specific work each individual does on their particular community. Let's go down the list of assignments and see where they might fit in the ePortfolio. Here on the left are blog reports 2 through 7 and the 4 major assignments of Info 200. And on the right are the 8 core competencies that Info 200 supports. I think blog 2 is probably a little bit hard to place as evidence in the ePortfolio because it's an introduction to and definition of your community. However, in blog report 3, you begin to identify your community's information needs and information-seeking behaviors, which aligns very well with competency J, about information-seeking behaviors. The other assignment that supports Comp J really well is the LIS Model Theory assignment. So as you're learning about information behaviors and theories and finding out how your community seeks information to meet their needs, you are creating evidence of your competency in this area. Specifically, CompJ asks you to describe the fundamental concepts of information-seeking behaviors and how they should be considered when connecting individuals or groups with accurate, relevant, and appropriate information. And you can see from the assignment instructions on the left that both Blog 3 and the LIS Model Theory assignment are designed to develop your competency in this area. They therefore work great as evidence for CompJ in the ePortfolio. Going back to our lists now, let's look at Blog 4, which asks you to summarize a peer-reviewed study, describing the author's credentials, the scope of the study, the methodology, and the findings. I think this blog report could satisfy different competencies depending on which study you choose to summarize. I don't think Blog 4 works for Comp F, Comp K, or Comp M, but the study you're summarizing should be about information-seeking behaviors and could be about DEI, emerging technology, research, and/or global perspectives. Blog 5 asks you to explore how libraries and information centers create learning and programming opportunities for your chosen community. And it asks, what are the innovative services and programs that promote learning? Blog 5 might be good evidence for Comp C, since you may be dealing with a program or service supportive of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's also good evidence for Comp K, which focuses on learning experiences. And if your learning and programming opportunities encompass emerging technology and/or global perspectives, your blog post may work for Comps H and O as well. Blog post 6, about global trends, has a straightforward correspondence with Comp O, about global perspectives. This blog post is a really wonderful opportunity to explore the wide world, think expansively, and broaden your horizons. Learning about libraries, archives, and information centers in other parts of the world can be very inspiring, so have fun thinking about global trends and perspectives, and this will be good evidence for Comp O in the ePortfolio. Blog 7 asks you to create a media-based artifact about your community's use of emerging technologies. So you're not only identifying and evaluating how your community uses emerging technologies, but you're also using emerging technologies yourself to demonstrate professional communication skills. This makes Blog 7 a great candidate for either Comp H, about emerging technologies, or Comp M, about professional leadership and communication. And finally, the Information Sources Survey, the Literature Review Matrix, and the final research paper all have to do with locating information, describing and evaluating it critically, and synthesizing it into your final report. As you know, to synthesize means to combine all the parts into a coherent whole. You start to do this in the Literature Review Matrix by arraying your sources and providing summaries and critical commentaries for each one. This ultimately becomes the literature review section in your final paper, which demonstrates your ability to evaluate and synthesize the research literature on your community. That makes both the matrix and the final paper great evidence for Comp L in the ePortfolio. The Information Sources Survey is a good candidate for Comp F because the assignment asks you to locate, describe, and evaluate sources that would be of interest to your community. That means you are using the basic concepts of selection and evaluation to appropriately meet the information needs of your community members. I want to zoom out now because, as you can see, one assignment from Info 200 has the potential to provide evidence in different competencies of the ePortfolio. And on the other hand, several different Info 200 assignments could provide evidence in a single category of the ePortfolio. You also probably won't use every single Info 200 assignment as evidence because by the time you're working on the portfolio, you'll have lots of evidence from all your classes to draw upon. So I'd like to show you my ePortfolio briefly as an example of one way to marshal Info 200 assignments as evidence. So here is my ePortfolio, and I'm just going to search for Info 200. And here is the list of results. This is every place I mention Info 200. And I know that the places where I have put parentheses around Info 200 are the places where I used assignments as evidence. The other results are just places where I've mentioned the course for one reason or another. So you can see here for Comp J about information seeking behaviors, I have used my LIS model theory assignment. And if I click on that, it takes me straight to the paper that I wrote about the berry picking model of information seeking and its application to classical music performers. So I'll click back now, and we can take a look at Comp O, which is about global perspectives. And for this one, I have used both my blog report 6 and my blog report 7. Blog report 6, if I click on that, it takes me to the global community of classical music performers. And if I look at blog 7, this was a video that I made about emerging technologies. And this infographic screenshot was one slide from that video. And finally, if I go back again, I can look at Comp L, which is about research. And of course, here I have used my research paper for Info 200 as evidence. And if I click on that, you can see the paper I wrote, Scores of Information, the Information Needs and Behaviors of 21st Century Classical Music Performers. I'd like to conclude by looking again at the list of 14 core competencies. You'll find the exact language of these competencies in the Info 298 ePortfolio Handbook online. In the online handbook, you'll find lots of great resources, including example portfolios from past students. These examples are really valuable because they show you different possibilities for introducing and arranging your evidence. You can browse these student examples and search them for specific courses, assignments, citations, and so on. One of the student examples uses Blog Report 5 as evidence for Comp B about different organization settings in which information professionals practice. Another example uses the Literature Review Matrix as evidence for Competency A about ethics, values, and foundational principles of the information professions. Neither Comp A nor Comp B is on the list of competencies that Info 200 explicitly supports. But if you make a strong case for your artifacts, it's possible to fit them in different places. So just so you know, it just goes to show that there is no one right way to do it. Everybody's assignments and portfolios will be different. It's important to think flexibly when assembling the ePortfolio, and the student examples will be an invaluable resource as you make your way across the MLIS finish line. Just one final thought. Remember to save all your work throughout the program in a safe place because the work you do in each class is cumulative, and it's evidence of your competency as an information professional. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.